Welcome to today's edition of the Ancient Paths podcast. Today I am delighted to invite you to hear the testimony of a young woman named Cristin, who I have gotten to know in the last several months, who has a beautiful testimony, not so much a testimony from no knowledge of God to finding Him, but a testimony from what you might call a thin knowledge of God, or a thin relationship of God, into a much deeper love for Him, knowledge of Him, understanding of what our walks with Him mean, that was brought into her life, catalyzed by some severe suffering that she went through. And so I hope you will tune in. I'm going to bring her in just a moment, and I will be excited for you to hear her testimony. So, Cristin, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Oh, so happy to get to talk to you again. I want to start with asking Cristin, just maybe you could describe a little bit what your life with the Lord, or your knowledge of Him, was like before the events which really took you deeper into Him.
Oh, yes, I would love to. And thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for the opportunity. Anytime I can talk about the Lord is just such a blessing. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're so welcome.
So I was raised by a father who went to Catholic church and knew the Lord on some level. And so I just received and accepted that from the earliest age I can remember. I was probably 6 or 7 by the time I was like, yes, I need Him, and I say yes. And so I prayed, I talked to Him. My dad was really good about having us pray together as a family often, and before meals. And I can remember when I was around 6, we moved to a new house that had this beautiful, huge backyard, and I would just lay in the grass and just talk to the Lord. And my mom got me a Bible where you could check off the chapters in the back as you read them. And so I read the entire Bible in middle school. But probably around middle or high school is when I really saw my rebellion begin, where it was a more overt rebellion against the Lord and the things that I knew He had for me and the things that I knew He didn't have for me, choosing the wrong thing, and then kind of living in shame and guilt, and kind of running and fleeing and hiding behind my sin, just like Adam and Eve did in the garden. They hid behind the trees that they had eaten from when they weren't supposed to. And that's what I did. I hid. I didn't know how to come out and how to ask for help with those things that I was struggling with. So I started to kind of run from Him, and chose the party lifestyle that many people engage in college. And even when I would go to church on Sundays, and I found a church that I feel like was really sweet and spirit led, and I was eager to join and eager to progress in my faith. And I had a really hard encounter with one of the leaders of that church telling me I needed to fix my sin before I came. And while I see, looking from this perspective, yes, there's a standard of holy living we should be pressing towards. What I needed at that time was mercy and love and grace. And I needed somebody to show me that the love of Jesus covers all of that. We have to let Him into our messy homes and clean it for us.
That is so important.
So I had this sin cycle, especially with partying and drinking, where I knew, like, okay, this isn't what the Lord has for me, but I keep doing it, and guilt, and I'll just drink a little bit, or I'm not going to drink at all. And then I would. And looking back, I realized I was in true bondage. I had no ability to walk away from that. I was still choosing to go and put myself in those environments, but I didn't stand a chance without Jesus.
Right.
So when I got pregnant with my daughter, I actually felt like great relief. Like, okay, I can't drink when I'm pregnant. And I'm not gonna sin in that way. I feel like that was probably my most overt, to my knowledge, sin struggle. I see now all the selfishness and different things that were under the surface, but I was like, okay, I can keep myself clean during this 9 months at least. But but still I felt so helpless to do the right thing. And mind you, during this time, I was reading my Bible every day. We were going to church on Sundays. You know, I felt like I was doing everything I could do as a Christian. And I even had like a spiritual mentor who I hadn't fully told, like, hey, this is a big struggle of mine. Will you help me?
Yeah.
But more so, she was guiding me in how to walk deeper with the Lord. So I was checking all of these boxes that oftentimes as Christians or professing Christians, we say, like, okay, I'm going to church every Sunday, so like I'm doing it right. But no, there's so much more to it. There's so much more to offer.
Yeah. Yeah, so much more in him for sure. What happened to take you from that level of striving to be a good person and falling and in and out of seeking to love the Lord, but yet not really fully getting it as you would describe it now? What happened?
So when my daughter was around 5 months old, she started having seizures, and they progressed pretty quickly. And of grace that I have to share is that I was a pediatric ER nurse, so I had seen seizures before.
Oh, yeah.
I knew what to do in an emergency situation, and the Lord has always blessed me. You know, some people will say when it's your own kid, you freak out, you can't. And but He's always blessed me with a peace in those moments. And my husband's a super um, clear-headed and peaceful guy, so we handled many emergency situations where she was blue because she wasn't breathing. She had seizures that would last 30, 45 minutes, even longer. We'd be in the ER and they'd be pumping her full of medication and it just wouldn't stop. We were on stat flight helicopter ride to Louisville's NIC, our ICU. It was an extreme season of suffering, watching my little girl go through the unthinkable. She had 80 to 90 seizures a day at one point where everything triggered it. The window open would trigger it. Walking through a parking lot, seeing the sunlight would trigger it. And we were isolated. I was very, very isolated. I couldn't go anywhere. I was still going to work, and I had a sweet support system with my mother-in-law and father-in-law who were taking care of her while I was at work. But just constant panic and anxiety. I had my phone on me. I often was leaving work to run and help whenever her seizure wouldn't stop with the rescue medication or she had to go to the ER. It was like
I,
crazy.
I bet it was hard to work at that time, knowing that your little girl was in this place in her life. I bet that was just so hard.
Yes, it was. It was wild. And there was a lot of graces in that. But what it started doing to my heart was it started breaking up the fallow ground. There's a verse in Hosea that says, break up the fallow ground because it's time to seek the Lord till he comes and rains righteousness upon us. And I watched him soften my heart. I was crying out to him every single night. Like the shower was my safe place where I would just weep and cry out to the Lord. And I really felt like confusion because I had heard, okay, you pray these things, you do these things, and like in the Bible, Jesus healed everybody. You know, even there's specific examples about people with seizures and all kind of stuff. And I was clinging to all of that. And like when I wasn't seeing the fruit in my daughter, when I wasn't seeing the seizures stop, it led me to some very honest conversations with the Lord in the shower. Like, who are you? All those questions. How could God allow something like this? You know, and
So
even thinking, sorry, go ahead.
well, just it was really challenging your faith in a way that called you deeper in itself, because the answers that you had that just would immediately come to mind weren't working.
Yes. So it was a crisis of faith for sure. And I don't think I was going deeper yet because looking back, I can see the big picture. The Lord was breaking up the foundation in me that was wrong, that the Lord heals every single person as soon as they ask him the first time. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I do believe in his healing power. And I've seen miraculous healing in my children. But I had this economy in my mind where I've been a decent person. How could something this bad happen to me? He was starting to weed out, and there was foundational mixture about the character of God because I saw when he allows suffering, that's scary God, that's punishment, that's bad. And that's something I don't want. Like, why would I want a God that is allowing me to suffer?
Yeah, and it makes me think of how not only did you have this need for fallow ground to be broken up regarding your thoughts about healing just that specific issue, but as you said, your thoughts about God and your thoughts about this kind of karma like thinking
Yes.
that I be good, you be good to me, which it's really interesting that he was just really parting the waters of your heart to receive
Absolutely.
anything.
Yes, and I recently heard this beautiful explanation of like suffering in the world, especially in Christians, is that it's like a slow drip that's weaning us from looking for substance and looking for nutrition in the world. You
Ah,
know, that's never going to satisfy us. Having healthy children will never satisfy you. Having a
yeah,
healthy marriage, even these beautiful things that he does have for us, that's the way he designed the world to be, a healthy marriage, that won't satisfy you.
that's
um,
right.
Financials being in order, having a roof over your head and basic needs will not satisfy you, because we're designed for him. We're designed for intimacy with him. And until we find him and learn to feast upon him and his word, which he is the word, then you will not be satisfied. You'll feel that longing, that you'll feel that deep ache, and you might get some quick fixes by things like, for me, it used to be a fun party or a fun trip or whatever. But even now, it can be, oh, my family photo turned out perfect. You know, it's not
Yeah.
it's not sinful, but it's not gonna. It might give you a little fix or a
Mm-hmm.
new purchase. A lot of us women are tempted by shopping at points in our journey, and oh, I just bought the perfect rug. It can give you a little high, just like a sugar high, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to sustain you like the Lord.
Yeah, and it's so true that things like that, many things are not bad in themselves, but they are not him. And they
Right.
can never be him. And so they can never be that overflowing cup in our lives. They're always going to fall short. And once we are receiving our all in all from him, I think he makes all those things more beautiful, more dear,
Mhm.
more wonderful. But while we're separating the gift from the giver or looking more to the gift than to the giver, it just doesn't work, does it?
Right.
So, what happened to begin planting something new in that broken up ground?
So I still have this like transactional understanding of the Lord. And so if I have one child with special needs, I'm living a pretty good life. No way I'm ever going to have another kid with medical problems or special needs. And so I'm pregnant with my third child. I had a healthy second child. My first child had the seizure disorder. My second child's perfectly healthy. My third child has problems in utero. And I am like, they're pretty significant, pretty obvious. The doctor is like, these are generally chromosomal issues that aren't compatible with life. Expect a miscarriage. If he or she survives, it's not looking good. Lo and behold, he did heal this mass that was around the baby's entire head, neck, and trunk in utero. But he was born with two chromosomal abnormalities. And my husband and I don't have any genetic disorders. Isla had a genetic disorder, my daughter who has the seizures, who was a completely de novo mutation. So that means that didn't come from mom or dad. It was just like a
Right.
random, like lightning strike. And so when we had a second child who had two of those lightning strikes, our neurologist, because it's a neurological disorder, both of them are too, he said, this is like unheard of, Kristen. You and your husband are healthy. I cannot hardly believe that this has happened. And so we now have another child who's born early in the NICU, ends up with a G tube, is fitted for a reverse tilt wheelchair by 10 months old, not likely to be nonverbal. He, at 6 months old, got RSV, and he had all these airway issues and stuff that made it really hard on him and ended up coding. His heart stopped because he had a breathing tube that was too big for his little anatomy. And when they pulled it out, his heart stopped as he tried to breathe.
Oh,
And
goodness.
I was still like, are you kidding me? There was still fallow ground to be broken up because I was a wreck. I was heartbroken. And there was a moment where everything changed.
Really?
Yes.
You've shared this with me before, but I think only now I'm realizing this moment. So tell me, tell us.
Yes, yes. So, I it was in the late summer, early fall, and my son had just had that another hospitalization related to breathing, and
And how old was he now?
so he would have been about a year and a half, but
Okay.
still the size of like an 8 or 10 month old. He was born really, really small. All these challenges, G tube dependent, needed us for everything. Not, he didn't look at us. We still didn't know if he would walk or what his interaction capacity would be, anything like that. And I'm heartbroken. I remember sitting on my bed and thinking like, I envisioned myself on the side of this black hole and I could just jump in and curl up in a ball and never come out. It's like it
I
felt
can
like
imagine.
I wanted to escape my life. And I remember even fantasizing, like, is there a substance that would make this go away? Like, I understand why people seek out, substances of abuse because I was no longer really drinking at this time. But I just remember, like, I need something to dull this ache. And I had tried some prescription antidepressant medication from my OB, and it just did not even dull this like heartbreak that I was feeling that this had happened to us again, that the Lord would do this to me again. I knew He was sovereign. Like, how are you allowing this? It
Yeah.
wasn't making sense. And so I was constantly playing worship music because I'm like, I'm still have this seed in me, this knowledge of God that like, you've got to do something.
Yeah.
My heart is breaking inside of me. I feel like I could die from grief, and I've got all these kids that need me, and I've just you've got to do something. And so I'm listening to these YouTube songs. I'm crying in my bed, trying to sing these worship songs, and I couldn't. And I just saw another one and clicked it, and it was this woman talking, and she was supposed to be leading worship to a bunch of like college age worship students, and she never actually got to it, but she was talking about the Lord like I had never seen anybody. And it was as if she knew him, actually knew him. She didn't just know about him and know facts that she had memorized in the Bible. She knew him as a person. She knew what he cared about. She cared about his heart. She was aware that the things that we do can bless his heart or break his heart. Um, there was something in her eyes and in her voice that was just otherworldly. And what I believe was happening is that I saw Christ in her, and my hope shifted in a moment,
Wow.
that I was no longer looking for healing for my children, but my new hope was that I could know this God. I could know this God man, Jesus Christ, that
Oh,
he could come and sit on my couch with me, and that he actually wanted to.
oh, Kristen, just the idea that you felt she really knew God, knew Jesus, had a relationship with him.
Yes, it was truly otherworldly. It was a marking encounter that I still go back to. And he,
Yes.
in his mercy, used this precious friend of his to awaken hunger in me for him in his heart. So my 10-month old, he was in a reverse tilt wheelchair at 10 months old. I got to tell this story real quick. Amazing.
Yes,
So
you.
I've seen so many amazing miracles, but this woman comes in, this nurse, and she's like, oh yeah, he's gonna need to be reversed back because he doesn't have a lot of core, and he's gonna need the little headpiece, and he's gonna need this strap across his forehead and his chest, and he needs the 5-point restraint. She's doing all these assessments on him based on his tone and his comparison to what he should be at 8.5 months to determine what kind of chair he's gonna need, because these are really expensive chairs. Thankfully, we had great insurance that would cover it, but it took 6 weeks to come in, and when she rolled this thing in our house and set him in at 10 months old, she is like, oh, he can hold his head up. Like, he doesn't need this headpiece or this neck piece. And so she takes them off. And she's like, oh, wow, he's sitting up in the chair. He doesn't need the chest strap or the 5-point restraint. She took everything off. And so we were able to donate that to another family that may not have the insurance. And I was able to go get my $20 Walmart umbrella stroller that I can actually lift. I couldn't pick this thing up and get it in and out of the car.
So that would have been in just like a month and a half.
In a month and a
It-
half, his
it-
tone and his strength changed so rapidly.
Wow.
And
And
it continued.
oh my goodness. And she was amazed. And you were probably even more amazed by how much she did not expect that change. And
Oh, yeah.
as a professional in that work, she was like, oh no, this should never happen.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And
Wow.
he walked before his third birthday.
That is just so amazing and
Yes,
wonderful.
yes. And so
But
he's little Max is 5 now, and he's starting to talk. He's saying one words at least
oh,
once a day. He's using words to get his needs met, and he even put two words together a couple weeks ago. He said "dada bye bye" when he saw a picture of Adam,
oh,
and
oh,
my husband was at work, and he pointed and said "dada bye bye."
oh,
So
that is so sweet.
the Lord's hand is upon these children.
Oh, it made me think of a quote that you said in our earlier conversation that I want to go back to. The way you said it to me was that you said your hope shifted from Jesus' hand to Jesus' heart and to his heart being available to you. So,
Yeah.
can you expound on that a little bit? I loved that statement.
Yes, I didn't even realize as I was crying out to the Lord, which is the right thing to do, of course, when we're suffering. He's so near the brokenhearted.
Yeah.
But I'm crying out to him continually over these weeks and days and months and years that I wouldn't have been crying out to him had I not had this burden.
Yeah.
And my cry was for him to fix my circumstances so I could go on with my life without him. And I didn't realize that's what I wanted. I just wanted him to get this together, and then I would keep doing what I was doing. And what he did was such a deep work in me, allowing that suffering to continue for so long and to go so deep that it finally broke through to help me see what I wanted all along. I wasn't content even before Isla started having seizures. I still was hungry after the lusts of the world. I was looking for the next best thing. And when he allowed that deep work in me and for my hope to shift, for me to finally, he healed me to behold him. He allowed
Mm,
me to finally see where true life is,
wow.
where true bread is. The only thing that satisfies is Jesus.
Mm,
Talking with him. And then, yes, he will use us for signs and wonders, and we will see miraculous things. We will see heaven touch earth.
mhm.
But the most miraculous way that heaven can touch earth is in these stony hearts of ours that need to be turned to flesh. We need heart surgery.
Yes. And one of the greatest works that I see God do, I felt more and more as I've gotten older, is when He changes a heart. When He softens a heart or opens a heart, that just seems like, well, for one thing, I think it's something Satan opposes with all of his might. And he, our enemy, recognizes that that's the most significant miracle. And even Jesus said, to the disciples, don't rejoice that you can cast out demons. Rejoice that your name is written in the book of life. What you're talking about is something I already pray for people, but it makes me think of just increasing that all the more because it is a spiritual work that nothing can do but the Lord, but the Spirit of the Lord orchestrating things and touching hearts and breaking through. And I love to hear how he did that in you, Kristen. It's so neat.
Yes. The times my son was in the hospital a whole lot, his first couple years of life, I remember at one point feeling like this little spark of joy in me because I'm like, Lord, we get to hang out tonight. And when we were in the hospital, I would just have YouTube worship music playing over him. And I was so joyful. Like the Lord was so close.
Yeah. Oh, well, this is related to that, but I remember at a real hard time in my life, I thought kind of matter of factly, it wasn't a real emotional moment, but I thought I would rather have you, Lord, than be happy. I would rather have you than have happiness.
Yes.
And and I was surprised. It was like, "Oh, I had that thought." And it was true because the depth of knowing him, and of course the joy and the peace and the something you can't even put words to that goes with that is so deep that nothing compares to it. No
Amen.
happiness compares to it. And that's part of what I hear you relating.
Yeah.
So
So
super.
sweet.
Yeah, so super. In addition to all these wonderful things that you have seen in the Lord, there was something you mentioned related to that idea, which is kind of our tagline for the video, all these videos, about wanting people to live not by the world, but by the word. And you said something related to that about your view of things. So if you could share that.
Yes, the Lord has been so kind to to slowly teach me about self-sacrifice and how
Mhm.
the world is about self-preservation and exalting yourself. You know, we see this as we see people with social medias and the whole selfie phenomenon and the likes and the
Yeah.
follows and look at me, look at me, look at me. That was me.
Mm.
And he has slowly
Mm.
shown me that the way into the kingdom is through the cross. And you know, the cross is where we die. We die to ourselves, and
Mm.
that is how we stay near the Lord. You know, you can always find the Lord at the cross. That was the way in. That's the way to stay close to him, is to continue taking up our cross and dying daily. And so I found this in my marriage as I began to stop looking at what I want him to change, and looking at
Mm.
how I was being so selfish and so self-centered in all of these different little, even from socks on the floor to bigger, you know, issues.
Yes.
Realizing, like, how can I die to myself? Why do I care that there's a sock on the floor? This is deeper, Kristen. Like, let it go, you know, and turning it into more like serving and loving. And he has healed and redeemed and taken our marriage to a whole nother level through that. And then my parenting, learning to die to myself and stop being so stuck on a routine or rigidity, and learning how to, like, oh, if my kid's interrupting me, I need to prioritize. Even though, yes, I want to clean the kitchen, and it's not even that I'm like watching a show, I'm trying to get things done to keep our house in order, but dying to myself and my self expectations and the self gratification I get from, you know, having all the things in order. So it's helped my relationships all around.
Mm-hmm. You know, it one thing I had mentioned to Kristen before we got on was my realization early in marriage, pretty early. I feel like I had adopted this view that really is worldly of doing our fair share in the marriage, 50-50. And I think that was a little bit of a feminism borrowing, you know, without me realizing it, because I really did want to follow the Lord wholeheartedly. And I remember when I thought, I am a servant. I'm a servant to the Lord. I'm a servant in my marriage. How relieved, how much happier I was. How that relieved something, that clamoring of self, I think of it, and how relieving that was. That doesn't mean you can't ask your husband for help. You're not trying to be superwoman. You know, you can say, oh, honey, I need your help. But that is very different from, you know, well, you need to do your part here. And like you said, Kristen, I am so grateful for the things of the world or of my flesh that have fallen away. I know there's still work to do in that, but I'm so grateful. And you said the that kind of go get an attitude that women were encouraged to have, that you began to recognize something amiss there. What did you mean by that?
I think it's the enemy definitely targets women with trying to alter the gender roles that are so clearly lined out in the
Mm,
word.
yeah.
And it's a beautiful design that the Lord has for us, and it really is like a win-win on both sides.
Yes.
And I think Ephesians 5 or 6 really talks about that,
Yeah.
where what the specific roles are for a woman to serve her husband and a husband to honor his wife. You know, it's back and forth. It's a two-way street, and it's, you know, like you said, not 50-50, but 100% and 100%. We're both to
Exactly.
be just fully in and fully preferring the other. over ourselves. But I think the enemy has really targeted women and girls in this day and age with the whole pick yourself up, girls run the world
Yeah.
movement.
I'm really glad for you to mention that, and it makes me think. Um, let's pray that God will open our eyes to the subtle ways of the world, the subtle memes on Facebook or Instagram, or the little message in a commercial. Let's just try to encourage one another. And I would even say something I would love. If you've seen some things like that, put it in the comments below, because I love hearing people when they recognize things like this and are able to share that with all of us. So I wanted to ask you, when we were talking about this, you said Jesus is not a buffet. And I love that. I think you were relating that to not picking and choosing what we want from the word.
Yes, there's a verse that's just blows my mind. It's in Psalm 119, and I wrote it down because I knew I'd forget the exact verse.
Okay.
Um, verse 16, and in the New International Version, which I tend to gravitate towards, it says all of his words are true. And that's true, but the
Um,
translation that I love the best is the ESV, where it says the sum of his word is true.
oh, wow.
And there's so many of us who love, and even I, for so long, gravitated towards his healing and the things that are more palatable. Him wanting my life to be prosperous and easy and all of this, and his yoke is easy and his burden is light, and all of that is true to some level, but it gets twisted whenever we are pulling those verses out and leaving behind his call to holiness. You know, we are all called to be holy, and his call to walk righteously, and his call to live sacrificial lives. These are the things that often we shy away from. There's verses that are really hard that we all have to bring before the Lord, but we have to take it to him and ask him to walk us through that and show us.
Right, and I think that is so true. That last point, we wait upon the Lord. We don't impatiently say, I have to understand everything now. Some things we sit with, even for years of time, and then the Lord brings greater and greater understanding. That is a really good word, Kristen. And just to go to the word really prayerfully and waiting on the Spirit to wield it. So that's really good. Well, I know that time rushes by, but thank you so much for this. Just sharing of your heart and sharing of your walk with the Lord and the dearness of that. I just appreciate it so much.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I feel like this burning to say just one last thing.
Sure.
Um, if it sounds good to know the Lord and you feel like you don't know him in an intimate way, then I would just encourage you to start asking him to show you, asking him to
Mm,
reveal anything in you that's keeping yourself distant, because it's us. He comes close. We're the ones that hide behind the trees like Adam and Eve did in the garden. He comes close. So
yeah.
ask him to reveal, is there anything in me that's making me want to stay away? And if it doesn't sound good to know the Lord, but you know that you should, ask him to give you that desire, because he will. He wants you more than you want him. So
Mm,
he's not hiding himself. He wants intimacy. He wants to um meet all of your longings, the deepest longing in your heart. And I'm sure many of us have heard that metaphor of the God-shaped hole in your heart. He wants to fill that God-shaped hole, and he
mm,
will, if you begin to ask him and be persistent in asking him. It's not that he's hiding himself as you continue waiting on him,
mm.
but he's a gentleman, and he won't force his way into anybody's heart.
Yeah.
He's waiting for us to yield and to let him in.
Mm. Well, that is a wonderful place to end on, and I just echo and agree with Kristen's urging to, yes, ask, and I like what you said. Wherever we are, if you want to pursue him, fine. If you don't want to, tell him that. If you don't even want to, just start wherever you are, and any little smidgen of desire after the Lord, or thought that you might desire the Lord, just bring that to him. And he's the one who blessed the
Yes.
loaves and fishes to feed thousands, and he'll take that little offering that we give and multiply it. So I just would join with Cristin in encouraging you to do that. And we'll just end with saying, may the Lord bless anyone listening with increased desire for him, increased love for him,
Yes.
and increased ability to walk in the ancient paths of his word with great joy. So thank you so
Yes.
much for,
Amen. Thank you, Anne. I'll talk to you
oh,
soon.
thank you so much, Cristin. Goodbye.
Bye.